Welcome back to Social Sessions, where we delve into the intricacies of Luke Mitchell's case, joined once again by Dr. Sandra Lean. A distinguished expert, Dr. Lean dives deeper into the evidence and legal complexities surrounding this case. Hi Sandra, and welcome to Social Sessions. It's been a long time coming. I've wanted to join here for a while, so I'm just going to kind of take you back the way I do with kind of everybody to your own kind of upbringing, your own history, just so people can get to know who Sandra is. So, where did you grow up, Sandra? Where did you grow up?
I grew up in a little, it's not so little now, a council estate just outside Dalkeith in Midlothian.
Aye.
Place called Woodburn.
Mm-hmm.
Very straightforward, working class
Aye.
upbringing. Went to the local primary school, went to the local high school. Mum was a stay-at-home mum. My dad worked, obviously. Very, very, very ordinary childhood.
Aye. So there was nothing really there that made you kind of, as you went into law and stuff, there was nothing really in your childhood that would have kind of made you go into that kind of thing?
No. My brother was destined to go to university. He was the genius.
Aye.
But that was back in the day where boys went to university, but girls didn't, because they're going to get married and have children, so what's the point in educating them?
Very different.
I was of that generation.
So obviously we'll just kind of take you into how did you get into the Luke Mitchell case? How did that become something that you ended up interested in?
I was going to say by accident. I refer to myself as an accidental criminologist because that was not on the radar. But when Jodie was murdered, and I've said this a few times, my girls, I've got two girls, both just a couple of years younger than Luke and Jodie, and this happened on our doorstep. So my eldest daughter had gone to high school, and Jodie was found behind that high school.
Aye.
So very, very, very close to home.
Mm-hmm.
And my concern, even back then, they jumped so quickly within a matter of days to pointing at the boyfriend. And I'm thinking, hang on, if it's that obvious, they'd have arrested him by now. This lad's still walking about the area, still living his life. What if it's not as straightforward? They haven't caught him red-handed at all. That really was what got me involved. I mean, as a kid, growing up, I was always massively curious. You couldn't tell me just because it is, or just because I said so. That was never good enough for me. I wanted to know the whys and the facts and everything. So I don't know if that continued. And then when it came to this, right, it's the boyfriend, we just haven't arrested him yet. I was like, wait a minute.
No, well, I think obviously when you look deeper, and I'm going to show some cases where the media have sensationalised stuff and they've been maybe been caught doing it. Do you know what I mean? We're going to look at some of these cases and just mention them so that we can see. And I'm going to say I ran this through the Bing AI, so it was totally impartial. I ran this through just to see what kind of cases come up. Was it similar to Luke's? Was it kind of, how did they sensationalise it? Because you've got to remember, this was the world's media on a 14-year-old boy. Do you know what I mean? So, very stressful for everybody, very stressful for the Jones family, very stressful for the Mitchell family. You've got to really take into fact that Luke was a child when this was happening. So, was that the kind of stuff that was pushing you towards going, this doesn't look like 100% right here?
No, right from the off, the first couple of weeks, I was thinking there's something not right here. And then I met Luke and his mum. I didn't know them before all this, but his mum contacted me to see. She'd heard my take on it. It was like, there's something not right here.
And at this time, you're a criminologist?
No. I was an alternative therapist in a natural health centre.
Right.
That's what I did. That's what I mean about being an accidental criminologist.
Aye.
It was not on the radar at all. When his mum asked if I could help her or help the family, I had no idea how I could help them. I just knew that for me, something didn't seem right about the way this whole thing. You would 14-year-old girls brutally murdered. and they're telling you they know who did it, your first expectation is they'll arrest that person.
Of course.
When it's weeks and months and there's still no arrest, you then start to go, well, hang on.
And how long was it, Sandra, before they arrested them?
9.5 months.
So 9.5 months, and that the waited was it by that time 15?
15, yeah.
But they waited till he was 16 to go to trial?
Yes.
So was he bailed?
No.
No. So he was inside. So, well, obviously there's people, I've done one before about Luke's case with Scott, and people says I didn't ask hard questions, I didn't ask this kind of stuff. So we will go into that as well. But in my view, Sandra, I've always said I believe Luke. I believe what you tell me. I've always found you to be truthful. I've always found you to be upfront with stuff. You're very, very. You look into stuff like top to bottom. There's no kind of side hustle or anything like that. Where you really go into something deep, and that talks volumes. And how long have you been working on this case?
Be 21 years next month.
21 years of your life fully working on this case is amazing that you've actually done that, Sandra. I mean, it's and we're going to talk about how this has affected you as a person, because I've watched a lot of stuff about you, and it's always about Luke, but how do you feel?
I believed at the time, especially after he was convicted, I believed that we'd appeal and have him out in a year. Mm-hmm. If you told me back then I'd still be sitting here 20 years later, I would not have believed you. Mm-hmm. I think this work taught me a lot about, like when I was a kid, when I was being brought up, nobody said to me, right, you're going to have to pick a set of values to live by, no matter what. Mm-hmm. No matter what life throws at you, these are the values you're mm-hmm. going to have to live by, so you better mm-hmm. choose them carefully.
Aye.
And that, the whole thing about integrity, about honesty, about being straight mm-hmm. with people, about people, mm-hmm. sticking to the facts. You'll have seen the amount of trolling there is,
aye.
and the number of claims mm-hmm. that are made about dishonesty or overstating things or understating things or whatever. Mm-hmm. And I don't engage. And I know my truth.
I don't think you should engage. I don't think they should engage with. If somebody's willing to come up with some good questions and ask you questions that are maybe hard to answer or whatever, but when you get that kind of the trolling stuff and that, I mean, I'm the same as you. I don't engage with it. I don't look at it. Do you know what I mean? It doesn't really bother me. Do you know what I mean? But you do get it. Do you know what I mean? And it's but to the extent that you've had it is it's really it's very abusive. It's very, very personal.
Yes.
It's very, very. I mean, we're not going to go into things, but there's certain things been happening. You've had threats on your life. You've had different things. How do you cope with that, Sandra?
The blasé answer is it goes with the territory. Mm-hmm. The truthful answer is it's absolutely heartbreaking, soul destroying, mm-hmm. and to have to find the strength to keep coming back and keep coming back and keep coming back, no matter how many times you're kicked down. Mm-hmm. That doesn't get easier over time. If anything, that gets harder over time. There's a. My mum used to say I was a contrary little bism. There's a bit in me that will, like, you will not get the better of me. Aye. You will not get the better of me. Yeah, I'm getting a bit older.
Aye.
Yeah, would prefer a bit more peace.
No, of course. I think you deserve it, and it's one thing about you, Sandra. You've never ever entertained, and you've never been abusive yourself. You've never actually come out and been that person that argues back and stuff like that with these people on Twitter or whatever. I mean, you might have some answers and you might put some things out, but you're never aggressive, or you don't get that way with anybody. How do you find the strength to do that when people are like really personal attacks on you?
Partly because I can't work Twitter. That helps. When it comes to the really personal stuff, and some of it is ridiculous. You know, I've been trolled for my hair. I've been trolled for my makeup or lack of. You know, I'm an old lady. You know, like, who cares what I look like? That's not what I'm here for. Humour is one way of dealing with it, just finding ways to laugh at it. And the other is to walk away. Just close it down and walk away and go and do something else until the level has come down to a place where you can either respond neutrally or just put it aside and move on. It takes a lot of energy.
So obviously, you done some pieces on my case, stuff like that as well, and you helped out with my case, and you've always been there for me as well with stuff. And I know the trauma that 15 years in prison caused me, and it was all mental stuff that causes you the PTSD. Do you know what I mean? It's like there was no really much physical stuff happened in prison, but it's draining.
Yes.
I can imagine this kind of work to be draining.
One of the difficulties with this type of work, especially because I live right in the centre of it.
Aye.
Yeah, I'm probably 15 minutes walk for where Jodie was murdered. Living with that constant high level hypervigilance, constantly. You know, I didn't realise that the whole of my shoulders and my jaw and my neck for 20 years has been like that. Because you're just waiting for, you know, where's it going to kick off next? Is this safe? Is it okay to be in this area? Do I use public transport or not? All of that sort of thing. And really, until the documentary, and even after that, it was much less of a threat after the documentary. But it was still there. And it still kicked off every now and again. But to have lived with that level of
hypervigilance.
Yeah. And the sense of guilt. So you don't talk about, in this work, you don't talk about how it affects you, as in me. Of course. Because I'm not the one sitting in a prison cell. What right do I have to complain? I'm a volunteer. And that goes round and round, and it has done for years.
But that doesn't take away the fact that you have been living in a hypervigilant state for most of your adult life now, and it's because of this case. Yeah. So the work that you've put in, you've wrote a book, you're a massive part of a documentary. You've exposed a lot of stuff that's came to the front of the foreline of any kind of controversial stuff that's happened in Luke's case. So you have been monumental in any of this kind of stuff, and I don't think anybody knows the case better than you. So I will ask you a couple of harder questions, right? So these are the questions that I got when Scott came on, right, and said I took it easy on Scott. What is this with the transcripts and saying that you never gave transcript? What is all this about?
So there's a couple of different aspects to this. We might as well cover the whole thing so that we'll put it to bed once and for all. I had all the case papers in Luke's case, all the defence papers, including the transcripts that the defence had. But my advice, legal advice, in all the years I had those papers was that I cannot make them public.
Aye, definitely.
Just like a solicitor holding papers can't make them public.
Any lawyer would
that
tell
was
you
the first thing. Secondly, the ability to get transcripts and the cost were ridiculous. So in Scotland, you had to give the reasons why you wanted transcripts, and they had to agree that was a valid reason.
No, I remember going through it on my appeal and stuff. I remember it.
So when I was asked about the transcripts and whether we could raise money and everything else, that was the response I gave. That was the response that I had always been told was the case, had always believed to be the case. And just to back that up, in May 2023, the Justice Committee in the Scottish Parliament discussed the question of why transcripts were so difficult and so expensive to get. And then some people who'd at one point been part of the sort of main support group and had broken away claimed that they'd gone and got transcripts with absolute ease for pennies, and used that to claim that I'd been lying about the transcripts being expensive and the transcripts being difficult to get.
No, well, I can definitely assure you that that's the case.
Well, as I said, May 23, they're actually having a discussion. The Justice Committee are having a discussion about it. So this is where it started. Is that I'd been dishonest about it. But then they twisted that to say that what I'd said in the book, the transcripts proved that the book was dishonest. Well, Innocence Betrayed, in the opening chapter, says, I'm going to tell you the story of all the information that was never before a jury, that was never in the public domain. Well, that means that what was in court was before the jury, wasn't it?
Aye.
And what I'm saying is, and what I said in the book, and what I said in the introduction is, what was said in court was not the truth. A lot of the witnesses did not tell the truth. So I've now lied about how difficult it is to get transcripts. Those transcripts now prove that I've lied in the book as well. Nobody's actually pointed out where these lies are or what these lies are, because they can't. The information in the book is, they said this in court, here's what they said in statements. The transcripts don't cover the statements.
How did other people manage to get the transcripts?
I don't know.
Because it's not an easy thing to do.
No, I have no idea. I do believe there may have been access through different routes. I don't know what those would be, but certainly I have no idea where they got them from. What I do know is, and I did say at the time, it's almost like they're being played for fools here.
So see these people that are obviously saying that they've kind of publicly put the transcripts out now. I tried to read the transcripts to see what the big thing is about them. I can't really see the big thing. I don't know. And this is the worst, right? And I don't like even saying this because I don't like talking about it. But at the worst, it looks as if Corinne might have lied a wee bit. That's the worst that I can see, and that's not even me saying that I don't know enough about the case to say it. But that's all that I can see, right? And I don't know Corinne, so I don't know if she's lied. Do you know what I mean? But that's the only thing that it could have been. And as I says, I don't get the big thing. Like people have wrote to me, look at the transcripts and I did, and I'm like, I don't know what I'm supposed to be looking for.
Yeah.
So what is it that they're pointing at?
I suppose just exactly that. Like I'd said that, for example, Luke's brother didn't specifically admit to anything on the stand. Questions were put to him. Was it possible? Could it be? Yeah, and he was agreeing that yes, it could be. So they published the transcript, and that's exactly what's happening.
Aye.
So what are they looking for? I have no idea. I think the people don't understand. I mean, generally, people don't understand the difference between ordinary, everyday conversation and legal speak.
I know.
They just don't see it.
No. When you're in a court setting, I don't think people need to realise the pressure that you're under.
Yes.
How good these QCs are and how well versed they are on getting what the questions out. Sometimes the questions are loaded,
yes,
so that they want you not to answer. They want so that makes it look as if you've not got an answer. It's a loaded question.
Yeah.
QCs are very well trained on this. So to look at any narrative that you would see in a transcript, you really need to look at it from that point of view. Do you know what I mean? And I didn't see Shane's stuff. Do you know what I mean? I didn't see that one, but I just, to me, we've spoke about this before, and to me, you just need to watch the documentary. You can read Sandra's book, No Smoke, and you get to see. Sorry,
just interrupt you there. No Smoke's out of print at the minute. It's Innocence Betrayed that's
available. So Innocence Betrayed, you can watch these things for yourself, and the big questions that are there are, to me, right, this is, I've always said it, and it's just one point that just makes it so clear that he never done it, is that Jodie had blood under her nails from fighting with somebody that wasn't Luke's.
We don't know that there was blood under her nails.
Right.
Our nails were absolutely like solid with mud and you know.
Right.
But they didn't get any results from the fingernail scrapings.
Right.
So it wouldn't be entirely true to say it wasn't Luke's.
Aye. Right.
They didn't get any results from it.
Right.
The flip side of that is there's none of Luke's DNA.
Mm-hmm. No, because when I asked that, that's basically when I had Alan Jameson on, I kind of asked him, like, we were talking about some of the bigger cases he's done. We mentioned Luke Mitchell, and he just basically said, there's nothing there for me to kind of look at. Do you know what I mean? There's no evidence there. And I was talking to you earlier, I ran Luke's case through AI. And AI was coming up with stuff, and AI came up with saying that Luke's DNA was found on Jodie. Why is that? Do you know, Sandra? Do you know why that would even come up with that?
There was a partial mixed profile found on Jodie's bra. Mm-hmm. And I think we discussed, Alan spoke about mixed profiles and partials. They can't identify any individual.
No.
Because we've all got bits of our DNA profiles in common.
You've got to remember, this is Luke's girlfriend. The chances of Luke's DNA being on her are very high anyway.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? But they were, even and they weren't. Do you know what I mean? But
there was none. But a prosecution witness tried to claim on the stand at trial that I suppose a fraction of Luke's DNA was found on Jodie's bra. Mm-hmm. Well, that's not how DNA profiles work.
No.
A fraction of Luke's profile could match in the same places the same fractions of a dozen other males. Totally. So how do you know which one it was? You can't say it was Luke. But she tried to pull that one on the stand. Aye. And Donald Finlay, in fairness, trashed it. Mm-hmm. But by then, the jury had heard his DNA was on her bra. And would they have understood the
complexity?
The explanation for why that was wrong? Probably not. It took me a while to get my head round how it all works.
No, and listen, we had Alan on here a few weeks ago, and Alan tried to explain it the best he could, and it was even hard for him to explain to me what a partial mix was, and he was talking about like A, B, C, D, but you could be B, C, and then you could be A, B, and I kind of got what he was talking, but it basically rubbished it. It basically rubbished partial DNA, and they should basically. Alan says they shouldn't be using it. No. Really, do you know what I mean?
He did a really good demonstration years ago, 2006 or 7, where he goes in. He's speaking to an audience, and he goes to the first guy in the audience. He goes, "You got a 20 pence?" And the guy goes, "Yeah." And he gives him a 20. Then he goes to somebody else. "You got 20 pence?" He goes to somebody else. "You got 20 pence." So now he's got a handful of 20 pence pieces. Aye. And he shakes them, rattles them about, and he picks one out, and he goes, "Whose 20 pence is that?"
Aye, I know. Because all the DNA's on it now, isn't it?
Yeah, well, 20p, 20p, 20. They've all got a 20p in their pocket, just like the DNA. They've all got that particular thing in their DNA. You pull a 20 pence out, you can't see which one of them it belongs to.
No, it's a good way It's a good analogy to look at it and see how easy it is to, because it is very confusing when you get down to it, and obviously I was trying to talk to Alan. Alan's a very professional man, so he didn't really go that way. But what I was trying to say is I believe that these people sometimes bamboozle juries. Mm-hmm. And what they say, right, is if you hear, I mean, look, it happened with me on the knives, you know about that with the kind of knives and stuff, partial DNA and partial fingerprints of someone else, but you can't use that, and you can't, it's really, really complicated, do you know what I mean? And the be all and end all was in my case, there was somebody else's fingerprints on the murder weapon with the guy's blood on it. So that was concrete. The other stuff is bamboozling juries. So you hear straight away, Luke's DNA's on that bra. That's all they're hearing.
Well, it's interesting as well. I didn't find this out till a good few years into this work, that it's not about what juries understand. Mm-hmm. It's about who they believe.
Definitely. No, definitely. And listen, we had Scott Forbes on here the other day, and he was talking about like who was involved in my case. We had Donald Finlay, Paul McBride, Gordon Jackson, and I can't remember if it was Tony, I can't remember, but another top QC. That's a show trial. Mm-hmm. Paul McBride was the best in it. Paul McBride was by far the most charismatic. He was against me. Do you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So you end up with Donald Finlay against you, you end up with Paul McBride against you, and you end up with the prosecutor against you. You're in trouble now. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? Because these guys are very good at making small things look huge. Mm-hmm. And as you say, it's very hard to see. And when you put the documentary on, it's very easy to see how Luke never done it. I don't care what MD says, I don't care. It's a straight path to how Luke did not commit that crime. Yeah. That's all I see. The rest of it, and I know I'm pretty sure people will say, oh, blah, 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 but the rest of it is nonsense. It's you never say, how long was it till the trial actually came about? Was it 2 years? If it happened?
So Jodie was murdered 30th of June 2003. The trial started November 2004. Mm-hmm.
Right, so I mean you're forgetting a lot of stuff months. There, right? You forget, you know the main things, but you see when they ask you what did she say and they want it word for word, you're not remembering that, but then they turn that into you're lying. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? Oh, you're lying, and you're like, how can I can't remember, it was like a year ago. I can remember the gist of it, but you want the exact words, do you know what I mean? Like you can't.
Well, that also works the other way. So, like I have asked the question several times now, because I think it really does need an answer. The search trio, so Jodie's family members, her sister, her gran, and her sister's boyfriend, they came from, so Luke was coming from this end, and they came from the other end. Now, apparently they didn't know each other was coming until they met up. But when you look at both their statements and what they said at trial, they didn't look for Jodie anywhere on the way to that path. Okay? So they passed all these places that she should have been. And
is there a lot of places she could have been?
Well, her cousin was just across the road where they all went to hang about and smoke weed and what have you.
Aye.
And then just down the hill was Luke's mum's workplace that they hung about in. Jodie had also said that night that apparently that she was going to be mucking about up here, which is the granny's end. So the route that they took down there is the route that Jodie would have taken to the gran's had she been going that way. So there's several places that they should have looked. One would imagine that they didn't. And
is this fact on the statements and
yes.
stuff? Right.
So it's interesting that's kind of what I was getting at. It's in the statements, but it's also what they say at trial. You know, they change the stories about the dog and all of that. But this bit remains the same. And Donald Finlay said to the sister, had it not been for Luke, you would have walked right past Jodie that night, all the way to Newbattle, which is where Luke lived. And she said, no, they wouldn't. And he asked her why, and she said, because we weren't going to Newbattle, we were only going to the path. I would like an answer to why that was. They didn't know where Jodie was. Jodie was supposed to be in
Newbattle,
Mayfield East Houses
right,
that evening, as far as they knew. She shouldn't have been on that path at all. Why, when they set out to look for her at that time of night, were they only going to that path?
And is that on statements?
Yes.
So they basically walked by a lot of stuff, and they said we were only going to that wall.
That path, yeah.
Right. So, and has anybody ever answered that?
No.
No.
And it's interesting they got all the transcripts, and they've made all this noise about the transcripts, but they're not saying anything about that bit.
That's definitely strange. It's a lot stranger than anything else I've seen. That's against. Again, I just couldn't see anything that was that bad. Do you know what I mean? And listen, I'm not saying that Corinne did lie. I'm not saying that she didn't. She may have. I looked at it, but people need to remember that's a mother that's got a 14-year-old boy that. She's probably seen the tables turning in the way that the press have turned against them. There's a lot of people. So see, I don't know. Honestly, I'm not. But she may have told a couple of lies. I think any mother would do that. I think any mother would do that if they believe their son. It's very hard. She got done with perjury, I believe.
No.
Is that lies?
No, she was. She and Luke's brother were both charged with attempting to pervert the course of justice,
right,
which is not perjury,
right,
and those charges were dropped during the trial.
Right.
So
again, that's another kind of thing that's stuck on. It's just
the thing about perjury is the prosecutor. Now, again, the way you're talking about how they make these things look and how they present these things, he reminded Corinne on several occasions about the importance of telling the truth to make it sound like she was lying. And that's where this perjury thing comes from. She was warned if she was not telling the truth, blah, 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 yeah. But she was never charged with perjury. So what does that tell you?
No, like, and they do that. Listen, they do that in every single trial, that they want that key witness that they believe is if not even that they believe, if they think that person's got evidence that they want, that's a tactic that they use, do you know what I mean? And it's a tactic they use all the time, is by saying, remember, you can get done with perjury, to try and scare you into telling whatever you know. So if Corinne's stuck to that, I don't know, it doesn't look to me that, and if she's not been charged with perjury, which loads of people get charged with perjury at trials, contempt of court, there's loads of stuff, and then the charges get dropped. Well, I didn't know the charges get dropped, so that again, that's something that's new to me. When I ran that through the AI, it picked up on saying Corinne did get charged or did get convicted of hanging. So it just shows you that the stuff that's going about, do you know what I mean? And I know AI gets things wrong, but it picks up on the collective kind of hanging. And that was the whole reason I used it, is because I wanted to see what nobody can say. Nobody in the world can say AI is not impartial, right? So we're seeing where it's picking up, and we're seeing that it's picking up lies. Do you know what I mean? So it just shows you there's a lot of lies kicking about there. Do you know what I mean?
Or not necessarily lies, but misinformation.
Yes.
That over time has become woven in to the narrative.
The
in the early days, I used to chase down all these bits that were inaccurate and correct them.
Aye.
That in itself is a full-time job.
Definitely.
You know, just trying to keep on top of it, and there's a lot of people who've been in touch since the documentary saying, you know, they'd like to do what I do and they'd like to learn how to do it and everything. And I say to them, you know, detail. You have to keep your eye on the detail constantly. You might think, oh, there's no harm in saying it was a 2 brown haired when it was actually 2 blonde haired. Huge.
No,
5 years down the line,
definitely,
massive.
Definitely.
You know. So that's one of the really difficult bits is trying to keep on top of the misinformation and correcting it. And there you go. It turns up
Exactly.
all these years later.
Impartial stuff. And so, again, another kind of harder question. What about the phone records? It says Mitchell claimed he was at home, but phone records suggest otherwise.
Well, that's an interesting one. I don't know how the phone records suggest otherwise. Luke came in from school and he called his mum at work to ask what she wanted him to put on for he cooked the dinner for the family. So he called his mum at work to see what she wanted him to cook for dinner. And it was actually his grandma, Ruby, that answered the call. So here we have two witnesses, aside for Luke, plus phone records that show that call was made to his mother's workplace. The back of 4, I can't remember off the top of my head, it was 4:15, 4:20, something like that. That Luke was calling to see what was to make for dinner.
When did they reckon Jodie died?
Officially 5:15 is the claimed time of death. But
so this is an hour before, roughly an hour before.
Yeah,
right.
So he's figuring out what to cook for the dinner. Then his brother called the house phone. The brother used his mobile to call the house phone to say that he was going to be later for tea. So somebody was answering those calls in the house. We know where his mum was, we know where his brother was, we know where the dog was.
Aye.
So there's only one person left to answer those calls in the house on the landline. So that takes us up to, I don't know, 4:30, 4:45.
Aye.
And then Corinne is seen on CCTV leaving her workplace on the garage next door CCTV at 5:00, going home, and then again on CCTV at a little local shop buying cigarettes on her way home. So we're building up this timeline. The claim that phone records proved Luke wasn't at home is actually this is a standing joke. The call to the speaking clock. It's impossible to believe that something so ridiculous has had so much attention over the years. Luke called the speaking clock at 4:54. And they've always said that proved he was out of the house. Why would he need to call the speaking clock if he was in the house? He was 14, he called the speaking clock, right? Aye. So this is a claim that
was
that
the speaking
call...
clock, they think like 1, 2, 3 or something, and then it told you like, this
the
is the
time is...
Right.
You were going to say the
is
time
it accurate?
See, when I was a kid, it was at the third stroke. The time will be. So they used this to claim that he was out the house, right? They have a difficulty with that because the star witness that saw this bloke at the East House's end of the path that they tried to claim was Luke saw him at 4:54, the same time as the speaking clock call, but his hands were out like that. So either Luke glued his phone to his ear, or that wasn't Luke. In which case, they can't claim that was him out of the house. So
does Luke claim that he phoned the talking clock in his house?
I don't think he even remembered doing it. It wasn't until the police were questioning him and put it to him, you called the speaking clock at 4:54. Why did you do that? And he's like, well, just did.
I remember when I was a wee guy, I used to phone that all the time.
Yeah.
Like I just to hear it. Like there was, I don't know why.
Lots of teenagers.
I just used to do it. I used to phone it, and the Time, sponsored by Accurate or whatever it was. I did phone that a lot.
Clearly, that doesn't change over generations because we did as well.
No, I know. So it's right. So this is the phone. This is the big allegation with the phone calls and stuff. So it looks like Luke's phoned that at like 4:54 then for the house, and then. Is there anybody else in the house that it could have possibly been? Like, was Shane in the house?
Oh no, the call to the speaking clock was from his mobile.
Right.
Sorry,
And where did that ping for? Where did that ping?
I've no idea.
No idea.
No idea. They told us back then that the science for checking the signals for the phones and everything wasn't advanced enough. We did find out later that was a lie.
Oh, definitely.
But they didn't get any of the
I know
any
people
of the
that were
records.
convicted before that on phone charges were at pinged for.
All we had were like phone logs, like lists of numbers and calls made and who they were made to and how long they lasted and whether they were texts.
So Luke's phoned 4:54. He's phoned the speaking clock. We don't know what it's pinged for, and this star witness has seen somebody with no phone, right?
At the opposite end, so Luke's at this end and she's at the other end of the path.
Right.
When she sees this guy with no phone.
Right. So even at that, that's 4:54. Did Luke make the dinner?
According to Luke and his mum and his brother, yes, he did.
Right. So again, to me, it's just, why would somebody who's going to kill their girlfriend be preparing dinner for their family? I mean, a 14-year-old boy, why would you be doing all this? Why would you prepare? That would, unless he's such a cold, and I don't know him, Sandra, but I certainly, people that have met him don't think this, but unless he's a cold, very calculated, he's a 14-year-old to go and make the dinner and have that kind of as an alibi it doesn't sit right with me.
Well, we'd have an issue there anyway, because it can't be still making the dinner at 4:54 and be being seen with somebody who they're claiming is Jodie.
No.
At half a mile away a mile away at the same time. That's the first issue we have. If he didn't leave till after that, so he made the dinner.
Aye.
He's now not got enough time to get from his house up to where Jodie turned.
So is there a chance he's been making the dinner, right? He's been making the dinner. He's had a time that he was going to meet Jodie. He's maybe not got a clock in the house, and he's phoned the talking clock to see what time it is, so that he could maybe check to see how he was running with time to go and meet Jodie.
No, I don't think it was even that. I mean, there were two clocks in the kitchen. One was on the microwave, so it was never at the right time because it switched it off on the wall when it wasn't being used. And the other was a battery-operated clock that wasn't reliable. Why did he phone the speaking clock? Like I said, he doesn't even remember doing it.
He didn't remember doing it.
So it could have been any reason.
Anything.
But the difficulty we have, like I said, is if he's so there was a series of texts between him and Jodie between 4:34 and 4:38.
And was it aggressive text?
They were never recovered. They were never recovered. But according to Luke,
why were they not recovered?
Again, we don't know. They told us they couldn't get them back. But we do believe, or we know that after the police took Luke's phone that night, like when they took him from the murder scene.
So they got his phone?
They took his phone, and there's evidence from a phone expert guy who says that the phone was wiped, and that was probably when the police were trying to search through it.
You'd need to be good at 14-year-old to be able to wipe a phone, man.
Yeah, and it wasn't wiped. It wasn't wiped. There were messages still on it, but the idea that I don't think it's ever really been challenged. It's the police.
That's outrageous that they would even say that they take somebody there.
Yeah.
That's that's something new to me again.
Yeah.
Like you would think that would be a huge part of the trial, whether they've looked at the text and the text have no matched the narrative that they've wanted to go with, or if the texts were aggressive in any way, I'm pretty sure they would have been found. Why did Donald Finlay not do it? Why did Donald Finlay not get a forensic phone expert? Did he not believe that it was any use?
Well, basically, they were all saying they were all saying that the text could not be recovered. So,
that's mad.
The defence did.
What
apply.
is the science there, Sandra? Because I'm not 100%, but was it possible to recover text at that time?
Should have been. But
Right.
I didn't find that out till years later. But we also found out that the defence had applied to legal aid for a cell site expert.
Mm-hmm.
So straight away, that tells you that they did think there was something to be gained from the cell site information.
No, definitely.
But they were turned down because the Legal Aid Board thought the expert was too expensive, and they were told to go and find somebody cheaper. Now, back then, it was believed, I don't know if it was true, but it was believed that these phone records were only kept for a year. And they waited 9.5 months before they arrested Luke. So he didn't have a legal team until 9.5 months later.
And the trial never started till that.
So that was the April, and the trial started in the November.
So the chances are that the police might even have made a mistake and no looked at the phone quick enough. Something like that. Like,
difficult to say.
It is very difficult.
Yeah.
But it's a weird one, isn't it? It doesn't make sense. Like, in a big trial, we're talking about a worldwide trial here.
Yeah.
You would think that this stuff would have been done straight away. Like, which, to me, if I was a detective, I'd be going like, right, get that phone away, get that checked, get see what's on that. That would be one of the first things you would do.
Jodie texted from our mum's phone, because Jodie's phone was broken.
Mm-hmm.
So our mum's phone to Luke's phone, Luke's phone to the mum's phone, mum phone back to Luke's phone.
Mm-hmm.
Is the
way it went.
What was available in the.
And what was on the text, Sandra?
They were never recovered. So Luke said, Jodie texted to say, were they going to be meeting up that night? He texted back to say, yeah, why don't you come down here? And she texted back and said, right, I'll be down later. Her mum pretty much said something very similar, that she'd said Jodie could go out that night. She said Jodie was grounded up to that point. Other evidence suggests no, that wasn't the case. But she said Jodie picked up her mum's phone, texted Luke, and may have been playing a game on her mum's phone, waiting for Luke to text her back. Right, so they kind of roughly tie up with each other as being an arrangement to me. But they never actually got the texts.
Weird. So they never got and what about the texts for, like, obviously the mum and all that, because that's important as well then. They didn't receive it, didn't recover any of these stuff.
Yeah, there was nothing on the mum's phone by the time they took that. And
well,
like I said...
When was my case? When was my case?
2005.
2005? They recovered all the texts in my case.
Yeah.
All the texts were available.
Oh yeah, I've looked at cases 2002.
Because obviously you remember the texts in my case. Obviously there was the text saying people were coming up for a fight and all that kind of stuff. Do you know what I mean? And all that. Do you know what I mean? So that was all recovered. And my case wasn't long after Luke's. Mine was July 2005, I think. Mine was Luke's 2004.
Well, yeah.
Late 2004.
Yeah. But the investigation, for want of a better word, started in 2003. But they should still have been able to get.
Oh, definitely.
Stuff.
Definitely. I mean, that incident with me happened in 2004. So they would have been looking for the text in 2004. Do you know what I mean? So that was all available.
Yeah.
All text messages and stuff were available. Do you know what I mean? So that was very easy to recover for them. So you're only a couple of months before they're saying that it wasn't available. Weird, isn't it?
Yeah, very strange.
So, right, probably the next thing, right, that would put it through, it says, brother's testimony, right? Mitchell's brother admitted he was watching pornography at home at the time of the murder. So this is facts. I wrote into AI facts against Luke Mitchell case, right? And this is the stuff that came up. Brother's testimony. Mitchell's brother admitted he was watching pornography at home during the time of the murder.
And again, like I said earlier, stuff was put to him. You could have been doing this. Is it possible you were looking at that line of questioning? Now, bear in mind, prior to that, his brother had been trying to say that the police would not accept anything that he said. They wouldn't believe him.
Mm-hmm.
When he said, if he said, I don't remember, that's not good enough, I'm not accepting, don't remember. Oh, he was trying to tell the court that.
Mm-hmm.
And the prosecutor got the photographs of Jodie's mutilated body whapped in front of him. No warning, no nothing. This is why we need the truth. Well,
Aye.
you can imagine.
What age was Shane?
21?
21.
So then, when the prosecutor's firing at him, is it possible you were doing that? And I put it to you then. And he was just agreeing. Now, he was looking at...
And just to put it into perspective again, right? Because I'm just looking at my case, right, where one of the witnesses, one of the key witnesses, you'll know who I'm talking about.
Mm-hmm.
She was giving evidence. Gordon Jackson was questioning her, and it was basically putting her first statement to her that basically says, I never done it. Her first statement that said, I never done it. She started crying. She said she couldn't answer any more questions, and they halted the trial for the day and let her go home. So they said that she wasn't in a fit state to give evidence. So she came back the next day, and she was obviously prepared to question and answer, but I've never heard of that in any case.
Mm-hmm.
So why would somebody like Shane, who's just been given a very harrowing picture and basically panicked, why does he not get the same option of going, look, you don't look as if you're in a fit state here to answer questions?
Very interesting, because Jodie's sister's boyfriend, Stephen Kelly, he was there that night, so he'd seen in real life what they all saw that night. And when he was giving his evidence, and I believe it was some of the pictures of the crime scene, he ran from the dock in distress, and again halted to allow him to recover and everything. And yet these pictures were thrust in front of Shane with no warning, and then he was forced to continue.
Have you ever heard of a trial being halted for a witness that would help the defence? Because what I see in a lot of trials is just a bombardment until they get what you want at
Yeah.
if if it's going to fit their narrative. If it looks as if that person's breaking and maybe going to tell the truth, it looks as if that gets halted in a way that if it seems to be only witnesses who are going to help the Crown's narrative that seem to get that kind of treatment. I've seen and heard of hundreds of witnesses being put down the stairs and being told, if you don't get down, you'll get 5 minutes down the cells, and if you don't come back up here and answer, you'll be getting done with perjury, contempt of court. So it looks as if there's a wee bit of bias going on here.
Well, I think, and I've said this a few times, the clue's in the name. It's the Crown Prosecution Service. What's it there to do? It's there to obtain convictions. It's there to have successful prosecutions. So of course they're going to lean on anybody that they think, if they can break them and get because Donald Finlay actually said at appeal that they tried to break his brother the way they tried to break Luke. So if we're talking about justice...
How long was Shane on the dock for?
Oh, it was about a couple of days.
A couple of days. And did he get a break? Like, did they ever say to him, you can go on away home and...
No.
No. Did that with Luke? Did they say, Luke
didn't give evidence.
Didn't give evidence. So Shane never got that kind of treatment, but Stephen Kelly did.
Yeah.
It's interesting. I'd be interested to see how many trials that's actually happened in. Where the defence have got, because that's my trial, Luke's trial, and I'm pretty sure there'll be a load more, but I could get millions of people to sit there and tell you that they've been put in the cells, and they get told you'll not get your methadone if you don't go up there and get your evidence and stuff.
Just to finish that question, so was he looking at pornography? Did he admit to looking at pornography? Once again, things were put to him. So he was on a car site. There was also there's been some discussion about this, so let's just get right to the point. There was another site. There's probably some pornography in there as well, but the obscene image that they were talking about, from memory, one of his mates sat bare backsided on a photocopier, and this was the picture that they were sending back and forward. That's what they were referring to as the obscene image.
I know hundreds of people that have done that.
Yeah.
Loads and loads of people that have done that in office
So we've got this combination of pop-ups on a car site that he was looking at, and this obscene image, and it all comes together, and suddenly they're putting it to him, you were looking at pornography, and not only were you looking at pornography, but what else were you doing, you naughty boy, in front of the whole court and the world's press? How to destroy a witness, just like that.
No, listen, they're very talented people, aren't they? When you're talking about these prosecutors and the Crown, the higher it goes, the better they get at it. Do you know what I mean? And that is their job. And listen, I've came to kind of terms. I've tried to come to terms with the Crown, as you say, are a prosecution service. They're there to prosecute you. Sometimes it's hard to take that route, but I that is what it is. That's what they're there for, and they will try and get that prosecution whatever way they can. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I don't think the defence are quite as well equipped, or don't go for as much stuff as they should when they're talking to Luke, who's what this time 16 at this time. I would imagine Luke was similar to myself. He wasn't taught forensics at school. He wasn't taught about crime scenes. He wasn't taught about any of this kind of stuff. So when you're fired into a high court trial, I was 19, so I was still young, but Luke's even younger than that. You don't have a clue. You really don't. You just let your QC, somebody like Donald Finlay, you're not going to question. You're just going to let him carry on. And on you go, Sandra.
I think the thing that I've found really interesting over the years as well is the amount, the resources available to the defence are much, much less than to the prosecution.
So much.
And the idea, people have this idea that it's like a level playing field, and the defence can just apply for this and apply for that. Well, first of all, why are they having to apply for it?
Aye.
It should be automatic. It's not. But like I said about the cell site expert, they get to decide. I mean, where do you go shopping for a cheaper cell site expert?
I know. How many is there?
Not too many of them on the high street.
No.
But they can make a decision like that and say, they can say it's a fishing expedition, they can say it's too expensive, they can say that's your budget, that's all you're getting.
I know. I've had it on myself. I know exactly, and it's there's similarities in the way as well when you look at the way my case was conducted at the end up when we were trying to get DNA vials and stuff like that.
Yep.
They're probably destroyed now. Do you know what I mean? We've been writing to them for, I don't know, 2 or 3 years now. Do you know what I mean? Asking for vials and stuff, and they don't even answer you now.
No.
Do you know what I mean? They don't even give you an answer, and we've been writing to them through lawyers and stuff. They don't even get answered through lawyers. I mean, it is, but it's verging on. It's like I got the blame, right? Like this is the type of stuff like we really need to speak about. I got the blame of making us. I think it was something like 38 or 52. That's in my head. I had appeal hearings, right?
Yeah.
And I got the blame in the judge's thing of doing that. Not once could I ever turn round, Sandra, and go, "I'm not going to court today, mate."
No, exactly.
Or when I go to court and they go, "We've not got the right paperwork, you'll need to come back." And then you go again and they'll go, "We've not got the right paperwork, come back." That's not me.
No.
I've got nothing to do with that.
And yet the judges refer to that as you having the luxury
I know.
of that many. Who in their right mind,
I know.
sitting in prison,
I know.
considers it a luxury
I know.
to have it keep going back to the court and keep going back to the court and keep going back to the court? Where do they even, what goes on in their minds
I know.
that they can say, oh, Mr. Toll had the luxury of this?
know.
What?
No, I would say a million times over, the High Court is a horrible place with a horrible energy. It's intimidating. There's loads of stuff there, but so the next thing that kind of came up, Sandra, right, was the incriminating pouch. It says the pouch for the missing knife had Jodie's initials and a quote from her favourite band, Nirvana. Can you elaborate on that one?
Mm-hmm. So there was a knife pouch, a leather knife pouch, and Luke had written in biro Jodie's initials and the date of the year of her birth and the year of her death.
Mm-hmm.
And then inside, he had written the finest day, I'm going to get this wrong, the finest day I ever had was when tomorrow never came, which is a line from Nirvana. But they claimed that was the pouch for the missing knife, the missing knife being the murder weapon that was never recovered. There are a couple of difficulties with that. The first is the knife that would have fitted that pouch. And actually, it was there right in front of people's faces if they'd bothered to look, because there's a policeman got it in his hand, and
it's a pen knife, isn't it?
Yeah, it's the
well, we had
length of the guy's
Scotland, right?
hand.
And Scott was basically saying, I remember being young and people carrying small knives like that who smoked hash, and it was to cut the soap bar and stuff like that. Do you know what I mean? People had these knives, the wee pocket knives, if you smoked hash. That wasn't it wasn't rare. Do you know what I mean? So I'll ask you then, how did they get the date of her murder right? How did that come about then?
Well, it was after.
Oh, so right. So he's wrote it after?
Yeah.
Right.
Now, a lot of people have said, why would he write it on a knife pouch? How, when she was murdered with a knife? It's a fair enough question, but I think it was probably stupidity or lack of sort of maturity.
Or could it have been him and Jodie like that knife yours could that because it used to, I don't know, like they maybe used it, I don't know.
Well, no, the claim was that there is a receipt that shows that knife was bought after Jodie was murdered.
Right.
So in the December. It was then claimed that it was missing when the police came to search. But it wasn't. His mum, he wasn't allowed to have it all the time. His mum had put it away.
Luke was a goth, is that right? No, it wasn't gothic.
No,
was Jodie gothic?
She was dabbling, experimenting with it. But no, Luke certainly wasn't gothic back then. Skater boy, I believe, is the
skater boy. He looked like a skater boy to me. Aye, that kind of skater boy look.
But again, there's how well the media sold it. There's pictures of him there, and they're calling him a goth, and you can see with your own eyes he's not a goth.
No, and listen, see that I'm going to put that as a good argument for against that. Luke probably should answer that and say why that why that was wrote on the knife. Do you know what I mean? It probably should, right? That's no. Doesn't mean that I disbelieve him or like I totally believe in him, but he probably should answer that question because it's a question that deserves an answer. Do you know what I mean? So if he wants to answer that, it's up to him. Like if he doesn't want to answer it, like it doesn't. But I think that is a good. It's probably something that you could put against him circumstantially. We don't know. Nobody knows. So. You can't. It's circumstantial, and that's what they use, right? So
the only thing that I would say about that is the pathologist himself said the knife that belonged to that pouch was too small to inflict injuries.
No, that's not up for debate. I think the only thing you would say is why would you put that on a knife pouch? That's a question that he probably should answer. it's up to him again. Like, I'm just saying that probably is something that doesn't look great for him. Do you know what I mean? Doesn't mean that I don't believe him. It's just something that's there. If he needs to answer that, then they should be answering why there's no vials, why there's a ton of stuff they don't answer. So let's put it in this perspective here. Do you know what I mean? So the next thing, right, is perjury charges, which I think you've already kind of answered.
Yeah, there were.
Mitchell's mother was charged with perjury for denying the existence of the missing items. No. So this is all getting picked up in AI, which is quite weird. So a missing evidence, right? A knife Mitchell regularly carried in his coat, which could have held forensic evidence, mysteriously disappeared.
The parka jacket. Not the parka jacket.
Is that what that says?
That's what that is. They claimed his mother burned a parka jacket that he was wearing in the log burner.
Is that in the wee thing? Scott told me it's a wee toty thing about that size. Like
It's about 11 inches across.
Aye.
But the difficulty is he and his family say he had no parka jacket at that point. It wasn't bought till afterwards, and they handed the receipt for it to the police. So I've seen the receipt for it. They absolutely did. Now, if you just try and sort of think about the logic here, okay? So it was the following week. The police raided Luke's house, his mother's house, on the 4th of July. Jodie was murdered on the night of the 30th of June, going on the 1st. They raided his mum's house on the 4th, and this new parka jacket, to replace the one that was supposedly burned in the fire pit, was bought on the Tuesday. Right? The police had been in their house since the 1st of July. There was a liaison officer in their house back and forward.
Did they raid the house as well?
They raided it on the 4th.
Right.
So the liaison officer, Donald Finlay referred to it as the vixen in the hen house. He was absolutely right. She's assigned to the family on the morning of the 1st of July.
Right.
And then they raid the house on the 4th. So if it's... Their suggestion is that on the 30th of June, Luke's murdered Jodie's covered in blood. Really, really, really vicious murder. He manages to get home without being seen, wearing a parka jacket.
Aye.
Gets into the house.
How long's the walk, Sandra?
15 minutes.
What's the chances of seeing somebody on that walk?
Oh, I'd have to come out on the main road.
So he would need to have walked out on the main road with cars and that were driving by?
Yeah.
And obviously,
and it's
every forensic expert that's looked at this, including the FBI, have said that person would be covered in blood.
Yeah.
So he's walked out on the main road and nobody's seen him with a parka jacket.
Rush hour, by the way. It's rush hour.
Right, rush hour. Nobody's seen somebody walking across with blood oil.
Now, some people have suggested that he could have gone through woods and another trail and everything. That it gets really complicated now.
Is there any blood on that trail?
No. But he would still have to emerge onto the big wide open street where he lives. And
plus, you would be a trail of blood. You can't do that.
But the other difficulty they have there is they've got this guy standing on the New Battle Road, seen by two witnesses that they're trying to claim is Luke. Well, either he's on the New Battle Road or he's not on the New Battle Road. He can't be both. But this guy that's on the New Battle Road also has no blood on him. He's just standing there in a parka jacket, possibly. They can't say for sure if it's a parka jacket. So it's
was this other person seen by a few people?
Only two witnesses. Driving past in a car. And
not, like, nothing to do with the case, just two people driving by.
Yeah, we believe, actually, that may have been a mistaken identity because the guy that Scott was concerned about for a long time, a guy called Mark Kane, was on the New Battle Road that night wearing a parka jacket.
Right.
And he actually looked quite a bit, like from a distance, he looked quite a bit like Luke. They had a similar hairstyle, similar colour of hair. And this guy had a parka jacket. We know for sure he did. So that could simply have been a mistaken identity.
And obviously, so did these two people point out Luke and say that was Luke?
They did.
They did.
But they didn't see his face.
Right.
They didn't see his face.
And they admitted they didn't see the face?
Yeah, but they identified him in court.
Right. And obviously that's a thing that people need to realise that isn't very fair either. Like, people really need to realise that this happens quite a lot. There was actually a case down to the Supreme Court. Jimmy Holland took it to court, doc identification. It was also in my case as well, where people couldn't identify me and they actually identified somebody else. They identified somebody else at the doc, the ID parade, and then when they came into court, they identified me. So these things do go on. Jimmy Holland won that case about doc identification. There was actually a case called John Jenkins. I don't know if you know John Jenkins, but Scott actually won that case. And that case was won because the police took the main witness to another trial that John Jenkins was in and pointed out and went, "That's John Jenkins there." And then took him to the ID parade and put the photos in front of him. And that was proved that happened. That's why John Jenkins won his appeal.
Well, again, in Luke's case, those two, the two that saw the guy on the New Battle Road, that might have been a miscarriage of justice. Might have been a mistaken identity. The police took a newspaper picture of Luke to those witnesses and said, "Is that the guy?" So the media are photographing him day in, day out.
Did they say they knew about the case?
I don't know if they said
because
they
it would be
knew
hard
about
to know.
the
It would be
case,
hard to know. It was all over the place. Like, I remember it. Like, it was so. It was Sky and everything. Like Sky News. There was worldwide news on it every day.
If you were local, if you were Midlothian local, there's not a chance you didn't know about it. Put it that way.
Because it was a huge case. So I'm putting these things. This is the things that the AI come up with, totally impartial. I don't think anybody can argue that AI is no impartial. Like, it's there to. So key facts, right? This says the victim and location: Jodie Jones, a 14-year-old schoolgirl, was murdered in Woodland, close to her home in Dalkeith. The boyfriend was named. Rapidly became the prime suspect. Missing knife and coat, we've already spoke about. Incriminating pouch. The phone records were spoke about. Brother's testimony was spoke about. Perjury charges were spoke about. And then it goes on to say that obviously the court found them guilty, which is as a point for against Luke.
Well, I guess, this was in the media for pretty much 19 months straight before the trial started.
I know.
So, and the jurors were local. They came from the local area. I don't think it would have been a massive surprise if he hadn't been found guilty, I think.
No, I know. And so, online abuse. Jodie Jones's family has endured online abuse and false accusations from Mitchell supporters. I
object very strongly to that. If there are people abusing Jodie's family or making false allegations against Jodie's family, they can't call themselves supporters of either Luke or of the independent review of the justice.
No, because we don't support that at all. We don't support anybody.
Absolutely not.
There's absolutely no support from myself. I certainly wouldn't support anybody that done that to the family. Do you know what I mean? The family don't deserve that. So that's
I don't have an issue. Like I said earlier, I would like an answer to the question, we were only going to the path. Why were you only going to the path?
No, I think that's a reasonable question. The same way as that's a reasonable question that we were talking about the knife pouch. So there is things that need to maybe be cleared up. But we're trying to look at it as a whole and trying to see. But listen, I ran this through 2 different AIs, and that's it. That's the best it could come up with. So if we look at some of the key facts that for Luke, right, we've got, as we say, a really terrible, gruesome murder, and it's terrible, absolutely shocking what happened to Jodie. And I don't think that you can do that. And it was proved that Luke didn't get a wash, wasn't it?
Yes.
So Luke wasn't washed. He didn't have any blood, anything on him.
Nothing. And you have to remember, there was a real fight before Jodie was killed.
And did the forensics say, look, this lassie fought for her life?
Yes,
like,
yes. She had extensive...
I was looking through when I was researching it, and I did see there was a bit that said Jodie self-harmed and stuff like that, and there was maybe, like, she had mental health problems and stuff. Is that...
It's something that I've never really spoken about very much. As a matter of respect, I don't think talking about a 14-year-old girl's mental health issues, especially one who's been so badly harmed.
Definitely.
But it is a fact. It is
well,
a
that's
fact.
all. Listen, this is online. I'm only going with what
She did self-harm. She did have issues. She actually said in her diary that being with Luke for her was so good because it helped take her mind away.
I seen that on the online
in her life. So again, to what was she referring?
Listen, again, I've seen stuff that I can't really speak about, but it's certainly no good. The stuff that I've seen, so that's all I can say about that. Do you know what I mean? I've seen stuff that's probably very incriminating, to be honest. But you can't go into it.
No.
So we'll go into the next thing that came up was Mark Safaric, an ex-profiler for the federal US agency, stated that his team did not believe Luke Mitchell who was convicted of the murder of Jodie Jones. He did not commit the violent crime. Safaric's team completed a detailed profile of Jodie's potential killer, and Mitchell did not match that profile. However, it's essential to consider all the evidence presented during the trial, including circumstantial factors.
I can't comment much on the FBI profile because it was redacted to the extent that there was not a bit of it readable.
No.
So the defence, we didn't get...
what was the reason for redacting it?
It belonged to Police Scotland, or at the time Lothian and Borders Police. So they were the FBI's client.
So did MD get to see it?
No. Well, I presume the police did. But when Mark made those comments, presumably, and I've mentioned this a couple of times because I'd like somebody to try it out, presumably if you're in the States, you'd be able to get access to it simply because in the States mostly that stuff's
freedom
available.
Information and stuff.
Whereas it was a freedom of information request from our end. That it was one of our journalists that put the freedom of information request in, and when we got it back, it was all blacked out. And the explanation was that it belonged to police.
What kind of percent would you say was redacted, Sandra? 80, 90?
99.
Is that as much as that?
Yeah.
Why would you redact? Why would you ask somebody like him to come over and profile and then redact it all? No,
he didn't come over. This is where it gets really interesting. Back in February 2004, the media reported that the two senior officers for Lothian and Borders Police were going out to the States to meet with the FBI and all of this. Yeah, they'd actually already been by the time they reported it.
Right.
Because it was the October.
Aye. So
the police put a report into the PF's office in September, and it was kicked out because they didn't have enough evidence. Now, they denied that. They said they didn't. They hadn't put anything in. They'd been quite happy to big it up in the papers saying they'd put this in and they were only naming one person until it got kicked back out again. So it looks like the only new evidence they thought they could get at that stage was if they could get an FBI profile to point towards them, even though they're not actually admissible.
Have they ever used an FBI profile in any other cases, do you know of, Xander?
I don't believe they're admissible as evidence in this country. After, is it the Colin Stagg case?
So they were getting used, and then they stopped using them.
And there was a suggestion that the police relied too heavily on an offender profile. It wasn't an FBI profile, but it was an offender profile to go after Colin Stagg, who clearly was not the right person. He did not commit the crime. And then that was, the offender profiles were kind of dropped in the UK at that point. And I know we were told quite early in Luke's case that they don't use offender, or at least Lothian Borders didn't use offender profiles, and yet
they done that.
And by the October, they'd flown out to.
I'm pretty sure if the FBI said, "Look, fits the profile," it's blah blah blah. I think that would have made its way out to the press.
Shadow of a doubt.
I think the only way you can look at that, and it's only my opinion. I'm only giving my opinion. But the only thing that I can see there is that it didn't fit the narrative.
Yeah,
that's the only reason you would redact it. Any other suggestion, I think, is madness.
I think not only that it didn't fit the person they wanted it to fit.
It probably fitted somebody else.
Yeah, I think the reason for redacting it so heavily was because it actually pointed at somebody else, and they didn't want that coming out. That's my feeling. No,
totally agree with you. I don't think there's any. I don't think you can really argue with that at all. So I mean, it starts to go into kind of diary entries. Jodie's diary revealed her affection for Luke, her boyfriend, and later the convicted murderer. Circumstantial evidence, witness statements, including Jodie's description of her attacker. I don't get that, because obviously Jodie wasn't there. Violent attack, Jodie's killer tied ligatures around her arms and repeatedly, I don't want to say it, but done bad stuff. This is all online, by the way. This is all just coming off.
Didn't tied ligatures around her arms sounds basically tied her arms behind her back with her own trousers. Right.
So that's that. That's where that comes in. So, so what I think you need to. This is what the AI said that you should think about. You should think about the age of the accused, right? So this is, Luke Mitchell was just 14 years old at the time. Mother and Jodie was always 14. The young age of both the victim and the accused added to the shock and the gravity of the crime. I think that's true. I don't think that. I think 14-year-old, world's press on you. What I did read was Luke was very cold at the police station. He didn't answer certain things. He was very calm, collected at the police station when he went. How true is that?
Are you talking about when he was taken straight from the murder scene?
Aye. This is what I was when I was researching. That's what it said.
So it's not that he refused to answer certain things. He answered everything that was asked of him. But you're 14. You've just come across the body.
No, you're traumatised.
Mutilated body of your 14-year-old girlfriend in the woods.
Totally. You're a kid.
He was traumatised, and not once did anybody bother to check if he needed any support or if he needed
and did Luke see when Luke got took to the police station? Did he get put in a paper suit and all that kind of stuff?
Yep.
So he got the fold money. He got
and when his mum came,
that's frightening. Yeah,
when his mum came, because they told her they were taking him to the station, they actually separated them, and they were questioning her. It was a big room. They were questioning her at one end and him at the other end. So he's 14 years old, just found his girlfriend, stripped, paper suit,
blood
taken and everything, and then questioned separately.
Now, obviously, CADA, right, was a big thing, right? Obviously, CADA was involved in my case as well.
Yep.
So to explain CADA, I'll let you explain it, Sandra, because you're probably better at explaining it. But what is CADA?
So they used to, back in the day, they used to allow what were called Section 14 interviews in Scotland, which meant you could be interviewed without access to legal advice or representation. Now, there's a couple of ways that could happen. The first was as a voluntary attender. The second was a Section 14 interview. And the Cadder case ruled that these types of interviews were unlawful, that they breached people's rights to legal advice and representation, which they clearly did.
Of course.
So the idea was that any cases which still had live proceedings could appeal on the basis of this Cadder ruling. Luke's case still had the appeal against sentence to be decided. It hadn't been decided yet. So it was still a live case. Now, we had this really narrow window, but it was still a live case. So it was a race to get in. Now, we had to go to the Scottish courts first, and then when they refused, we then had to go to
the Commission?
London,
The
Supreme Court.
Aye.
And then they decided the sentence appeal just before we got to the Supreme Court, which meant by the time we got to the Supreme Court, there were no active proceedings. He couldn't appeal on Cadder grounds. We saw that one galloping over the horizon. It was just a race.
Quite a good coincidence for them, eh?
Yeah.
So obviously, again, my case, put through Cadder. I was the only person, I think, that never won that day. I went up maybe, I think 5 or 6 sex offenders. Every single one of them got out, bar me. Do you know what I mean? So they actually turned and said that my case, my interviews helped me.
Yeah.
So this is what you're dealing with here. You're dealing with a 14-year-old boy who has not got any legal advice.
Yep.
Who's traumatised for what he's just seen. How do the people who are against Luke, how do they say that that's even like, what are they expecting Luke to be like?
Yeah.
Like, what is it they're expecting? They expect him to be like chirpy and
I think that's the other thing. Everybody responds differently to shock, to trauma, to... I mean, I've got 2 girls. They're very close in age. They're only a year and a half apart. And I know for certain their reactions would be polar opposites to certain circumstances. I just know.
Aye.
Because they're 2 different personalities.
Definitely.
So how can you say how somebody should behave in circumstances that you may not ever have been in yourself?
Was there ever any psychology or anything looked at Luke to see if he was traumatised or anything like that? No.
They did a psychology report to see if he was fit to stand trial.
So see, like, obviously that, so there's the Cadder thing, you never get the lawyer, so he's got no psychologist, because trauma's a big thing now.
Yeah.
It wasn't really a big thing back then.
Nope.
Trauma informed and all that wasn't really a thing back then. So has there ever been an attempt for MD, maybe a psychologist, to come through and say, look, could have been traumatised at that moment? No. No,
the psychology really, from the off, has been based on the fact that he was convicted.
Aye, of course, that's the way it works.
Yeah, they're not looking at could his responses have been because of this or because of that. The bottom line is the police said that he was, what was the word they used? Basically, emotionless when they got there.
I read something. It was like an IRA. He looked at the same bit. It was like an IRA guy. See, the IRA trained themselves when they were getting evidence. Was that a lot of rubbish?
Never heard that at all.
No.
Well, he didn't give evidence for a start.
No, in the police station, like the IRA used to stare at just one bit and no look at the police at all and hang it. Do you know what I mean? So
Never heard that.
Rubbish.
I mean, when the police arrived, and the search party were still at the wall, one police officer took the 3 family members up the path and left the other one with Luke.
Scott says they were driving about in motors and stuff. Is that with the family and that? Like the family.
This was later, yeah.
And this, they were covered in Jodie's blood and stuff. Which
they'd asked Luke to go over the wall and show this copper where Jodie was.
Who asked?
The cop.
The cop.
Now, this cop says Luke showed no emotion. But when he asked Luke to take him over the wall and show him where the body was, Luke said, "I'm not going back over there."
Which is obviously terrified him. That's
they then used that to make out like he wasn't going to help the police. He's 14 years old. I've seen the crime scene photographs. I'm telling you now, I wouldn't go back over that wall.
No.
Yeah, I would not.
No, I don't think anybody would want to go over there. It's actually quite sad to ask a 14-year-old kid to go back over and re-traumatise him to look at that again.
Yeah, and then to leave her out uncovered in the rain for the whole night.
I know.
How utterly disrespectful.
And there was family members up cradling her and stuff, which it's just beyond belief that would be allowed in a murder scene. Do you know what I mean? Like it's hard to believe. Well, obviously I know I've seen it. I've seen the stuff, so I know it happened. But it's hard to believe that. I mean, there was very much when like other cases, it's just taped off. Yeah. Nobody's getting near it. Do you know what I mean? Like to that forensic team come.
It was just a couple of years back. I was looking at the crime scene photographs or something else. I can't remember what it was. And I mean, you look at these things as few times as possible because they're not pleasant. But I was looking for something, and I noticed something. So they'd cut down the overhanging branches to get better videography, and in one of the crime scene pictures, these branches are up against the wall itself.
Aye.
And then a couple of pictures later, they're lying on the ground at the other side. And you're like, hang on, that's evidence.
Aye.
Somebody's just picked it up and chucked it and cut it down at a murder scene.
Aye.
Yeah.
No, bizarre, isn't it? And was there police like constantly around the murder scene after it? Like, or when it get taped off and stuff? Was there police?
Well, it didn't. It's really weird. It didn't get. The bit in the woodland strip didn't get taped off. Right, so they taped the ends of the path, either end of the path. But you could have got in, there was a field at the other side. You could have got in the woodland strip for there. That's what I mean. They left Jodie out.
So there was
overnight.
there was no police near the crime scene.
There was one police officer claimed he was there to guard the scene, but he also claimed that there was nobody else entered the scene until the following morning, which is absolute nonsense because we know the photographers were there. We know the doctor was in to pronounce death. We know that the pathologist went in with the senior officer at some point during the night as well.
Family members went in early as well.
Well, the family members were there because they were part of the search.
Aye, but I still what you would think. Oh, so did they go up in before the police came and
yes.
right, which you would do. You maybe like as a granny and a mother, you maybe would do, right?
No, they were part of the search party. It was only the members of the party that it was only the members of the family that were part of the search party that were anywhere near the body. After that, the rest of the family didn't get anywhere near the body.
No. What I'm saying is obviously like if you were like a granny or whatever, like a relation's Jodie, you maybe would, when you see that scene, you would maybe go up and cradle her, which is fine.
Oh yeah, the gran said she did.
So what my problem is with that? What my problem is with that is when the police turn up, they surely need to take her away and paper suit her and stuff because that's what they do in murder cases. Yeah. Anybody that's got any tie, like you can't do that. Like no. You would be took away.
You've got that. Then you've got the sister's boyfriend who also went over the wall. Now bear in mind that their claim was that Jodie climbed over the wall with somebody who then killed her. So the sister's boyfriend has also climbed over this wall. So any trace evidence from the wall could also be on the sister's boyfriend, but they don't take his clothes either. And then he and the granny and the sister are getting traipsed up and down, taken to different places, taken to the police station, then taken back to Jodie's mum's house where they're mingling with other members of the family. Yeah, how do you follow that trace evidence for that point in? You don't.
No, it's so bizarre, isn't it? It's just, it's like, how do you make sense of it? It's like, there's no rational way to look at it. Do you know what I mean? There's no rational way to look at that, Sandra. It's madness. So I'll look at like the appeals and reviews, right? So if you can just if I could ask you just like to summarise, right? What evidence was against Luke? What was the damning evidence? Nothing. Same as what Alan Jameson said.
Yeah. The three members of the search trio changing their story from the dog reacting at the wall to saying the dog didn't react and Luke just went straight over because he knew where the body was. That's it. That's your evidence. Even the stuff about his alibi and whether his brother did or didn't see him at home and everything. So that even in its own right, that's not enough. It's just like,
it's irrelevant, isn't it? Really.
Yeah. So the only thing really that we've got is the change of their statements from saying that the dog reacted and that's why Luke went over the wall where he did, to saying at trial the dog didn't react and Luke just climbed over the wall and went straight to the body, so he must have known where it was. That essentially is what the case hinges on. We had the eyewitness who said she saw a youth and a girl that could have been looking Jodie at Jodie's end of the path. This is the 454 lady who couldn't identify Luke in court.
So that's no really it, is it? It's no like
No.
how did the jury find him guilty, Sandra? Then?
Oh, I think there's absolutely no doubt that the 19 months of relentless media coverage pointing to that child as a killer.
Because the media did
Yes.
call him a killer and stuff, didn't they?
Oh,
They weren't hiding it. So what I'm going to just quickly do, right, just so people know, I put it through and I just say, like, can you give me some cases where the media have got it wrong, right? The media have kind of got it wrong, just so we know. And this basically says they sensationalise stuff. So we'll look at the case, right? So they kind of come up with like the Iraq War and the weapons of mass destruction. The media played a role in promoting the false narrative that Iraq possessed weapons of mass destruction, leading to the invasion. Later investigations revealed there was a lack of evidence. Rolling Stones, UVA rape story. Rolling Stones published a story about an alleged gang rape at the University of Virginia, which was later discredited due to factual inaccuracies. Just looking at the other ones, we've got so many here that come up. We've got Saddam Hussein's capture. Initial reports claim Saddam Hussein was found hiding in a hole. Later it was revealed he surrendered peacefully. Y2K panic. The media fueled fears of widespread computer failures during the year 2000 transition, which turned out to be largely unfounded. Princess Diana's death, misinformation and conspiracy theories surrounding Princess, leading to confusion and sensationalism. That's only there's loads of cases here, and that's just to show how the media can sensationalise things.
I
you know what I mean?
think the most recent example of that I can think of was the Joanna Yates case, where Christopher Jeffries was plastered all over the media as this strange man who must have been her murderer because he was her landlord. And the bottom line there is he hadn't been there was no evidence against him whatsoever.
Mm-hmm.
And he ended up suing them. And
kind of hanging.
When he won against all of them. But they could have destroyed that man's life.
Definitely. And obviously, listen, we're coming up to the end. We've only got like 5 minutes left here, Sandra. Wow. And I don't think anybody can say that I've not asked you the hard questions here. I've asked you. So. I've not really went into all the stuff that we went into with Scott, like when we were talking about all the stuff. We've not really went into all that. Do you know what I mean? And maybe get you back to talk about that kind of stuff. But what I wanted to do was just challenge you on the stuff that people are saying.
Yep.
Do you know what I mean? And I think you've answered everything that has been put to you really well. And me personally, I'm just because I'll tell it how it is, and I like you, right? And that might make me biased, but I've always found you truthful. I've always found you very helpful. You've never ever done me a bad turn. So that's my opinion of you. I can't hang in that, Sandra.
I would just ask one question of the people who say that I've been dishonest about anything.
Mm-hmm.
Why would I do that?
Mm-hmm.
Why would I do that?
Mm-hmm.
And potentially encourage the release of a real brutal murderer. If they believe Luke's guilty,
mm-hmm.
why would I lie
mm-hmm.
to support that?
No.
Of course I wouldn't.
And I don't, listen, it's not just you, Sandra, you hold rallies quite a lot, and there's quite a lot, it's very well attended. I get quite a lot of people asking me why do I not cover the Luke Mitchell case more, why do I not do that, and listen, I've always stood by, I believe Luke, and I'll say that when it comes, but Luke's not the only miscarriage of justice out there, do you know what I mean? So, like, I can't just cover it all the time, do you know what I mean? And that's what I think people get and kind of embroiled in that. Why no do more about Luke? Why no? And I try my like, you can only do what you can do, Sandra.
And I think it's important as well. I've said this quite a few times. People referring to Luke's case as the biggest miscarriage of justice in Scotland. Hello.
I mean, obviously, my case, I would say the biggest miscarriage is we had Joe Steele on here. I mean, Joe Steele was huge. Do you know what I mean? Joe was done with killing a whole family.
Yeah.
Luckily, he won his appeal, and hopefully that will happen to Luke someday. But listen, Sandra, I'll give you the last message. So you can just always give the guest the last wee message. So just anything that I would like to just say to anybody out there. On you go. Just give you the last message.
Anybody that cares about true justice, real justice, and truth, look at the facts. Don't get suckered into all the nonsense. Look at the facts and ask yourself, has justice been done here? Because if it's not, there's a murderer still walking about among us. You know that situation. Too many other people know that situation. Is that what people want to trust as justice?
No. Brilliant. And listen, Sandra, thank you very much for coming on.
Thank you so much for asking me.
Brilliant.
Great to see you again.